What's the most disturbing secret you have discovered who is someone close to you? I know a woman who got pregnant by a family member and needed to get an abortion that no one else knew about. I know a guy who was molested by a friend of his family through pretty much all of his puberty and he needed to testify against him later in life. I know a woman who is in witness protection, though I never got to know her real last name. I also know a woman who keeps all of her nail clippings and I wonder if she's suppressing some kind of secret mental disorder. But then again, I've lied about serious secrets to people before so they would get creeped out and leave me alone. So, I had a baseball coach in middle and high school who was a well-respected individual in the community. He was a former minor leaguer in the Oakland A's organization, and was a pitching coach with both the high school and middle school. So it came as a shocker when the community discovered that he had been arrested in a nearby state in a Chris Hansen-style predator investigation trying to meet up with a 14-year-old boy. It was also revealed that he had over 5 terabytes of CP on his computer's hard drive. He got out on bail and is likely far away from my town now. Had a baseball coach in middle and high school who was a well-respected individual in the community. He was a former minor leaguer in the Oakland A's organization, and was a pitching coach with both the high school and middle school. So it came as a shocker when the community discovered that he had been arrested in a nearby state in a Chris Hansen-style predator investigation trying to meet up with a 14-year-old boy. It was also revealed that he had over 5 terabytes of CP on his computer's hard drive. He got out on bail and is likely far away from my town now. My grandma has dementia and my grandpa died from COVID. She's been letting some secrets spill. I know my grandpa's barn burned down before I was born and so did their childhood house. Grandma told me about them living in a convent for a year and my grandpa coming later. They lived apart for a year across the country after the house and bar burned down. I said WTF and she said she just always hoped nobody showed up to the house with a gun. Asked my mom about it, she said yeah that did happen. Crazy shit, my pop-pop was a nice man but I never knew him to have a job. My stepdad molested one of my sisters and his own brother when he was a teenager. That's not the disturbing part, I already knew that. What's disturbing is that my other sister knows this and refuses to cut him out of her life because she likes that he buys her stuff and sends her money so she can keep up the appearance of being well off. She's broke. She has no problem letting him around her daughters, and blamed my other sister for having mental illness and cut her out of her life completely and always tries to get us to not invite her to holidays. I didn't discover, but my wife and sister-in-law discovered their mother was previously married to a gay man, had the marriage annulled and then got into a relationship with a priest, who defrocked and married her. My father-in-law. And they never told their daughters or anyone else. He died a few years ago and took that to the grave. What's weird is that my wife's sister-in-law discovered this information when they were kids. They've known for over 35 years. To think of lying perpetually to your kids. Just astounding. I was acquaintances with a girl in college. We did some field work stuff together. Our professor would sometimes bring her daughter if she couldn't find childcare. Welcome to find out the girl was a pedophile. She was on the sex offender list. I found this out before my professor. I ended up telling the professor about it since I didn't want anything to happen to her kid. The girl was very nice and friendly, but I could tell something was off about her. I didn't expect her to be a pedophile though. A close friend of mine was having an affair with a co-worker. She got pregnant and had the baby. A few months later the man she was having the affair with was killed in a car wreck. She was so emotionally distraught. His wife and kids had no clue as far as I know. I went with her to the funeral which was kind of crazy. I really didn't think we should have been there. My friend moved and got a new job. She is raising her child on her own. She never told anyone about the affair except for me. Not super close, but a guy I used to hang out with and party with, turned out to be a serial rapist. He was active in the area where I went to school. It took them over 20 years to catch him. I was in shock when I saw him on the news. I never felt threatened by him, he stayed at our spot so many times. Strange to think he terrorized a few years of my life. We weren't allowed to go to the bus stop from school. And he was very active. Total dick. When I was a kid, a girl who used to babysit me moved away suddenly and I was sad because she was so much fun and I thought of her like an older sister. She used to live with her aunt and her family who lived across the street from us. My mom told me years later that the reason she left was because her cousin aunt's son tried to RP her. The son is in his 30s and still lives with his parents. Kind of creeps me out whenever I see him. Found out my dad did acid when we were watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The bodyguard guy smoked an acid-dipped cigarette and my dad said, "Oh snap, he's about to be trippin'." I responded, "Bro, you don't even know. I had already seen the movie." He goes, "Oh, I promise you I do." I asked, "I thought you hadn't seen this movie before?" He says, "No." We left it at that. It was disturbing because my dad is extremely anti-drug, a family member that I really looked up to, who gave me fatherly attention when I didn't have any, who was well regarded in his professional and recreational circles. Turned out to be a bit of a sex pest. Never raped, not a pedo. But got caught doing personal activity, was named and photographed by media, which destroyed his career. Reminds me to never let the horny take over your monkey brain. Keep your personal activity personal. Not super close, but a friend of mine was caught meeting up with someone to groom the person's kids. It was a sting. But pretty disturbing details emerged from this story, including that he was doing it because his family did it to him or something. And that family is very prominent in religious leaders in the community. He then hung himself in a park. Weirdly, a few years later his younger brother was victim to a serial killer. A very old family member confessed on their deathbed to almost smothering their baby sibling because they were sick of being forced to raise it. The baby was left oxygen deprived and unable to function. Old person used the R word specifically, and was put in an asylum out of sight and out of mind until they died in their 20s. Their parents never knew, and old person was still not sorry. Yes, I am being vague on purpose. My older half-sibling from my mom's previous marriage sexually abused me and several of my female cousins growing up. Several adults in our family had suspected things were off about him, but no one said anything. My grandmother walked in on him abusing my cousin and all she said later was, "He's gotta learn from somewhere. I haven't seen him in almost 4 years and my kids don't even know they have an uncle." My nana died when I about 8, I think. I have fond memories of her. I was told she was found in the bathroom. Most of my life I figured she fell in bathroom, as a lot of seniors tend to do. As an adult I found out she had osteoporosis and was in constant pain. One day she had enough, filled the tub, took all her pain meds, and drowned herself. I could have gone the rest of my life not knowing that. The reason Grandma moved away, when my dad was still a baby, to a big city, more than 3 days away from their family, was because she stabbed her stepfather and almost killed him. It was a very small village. Later she told me he was a rapist. She didn't elaborate on that and I didn't ask any follow-up questions. She ended the convo with, "I did the right thing." We never met her side of the family. My great-uncle, my grandma's brother, went to jail for sexually abusing children. He tried to abuse my mom one day but she ran out of the house to a friend's house. My grandma hated her younger sister for years because the sister's daughter reported the uncle for trying to abuse her, and that's how he got found out and went to jail. But my grandma still loved her brother and kept him around. A guy I have a connection to, I thought at the start of when I knew him, ended up telling me that he has an incest fetish, I guess? He never called it that. But totally into the fantasy of having sex with all sorts of family members in all sorts of generations. As bad as that was, then he slowly revealed that he also has a fetish for really young teen girls. He is blocked. And I'm sickened. My ex-partner is a pedophile. Him and I lived in the same house as my sibling and their children. When I found out, he came close to killing me only because he suspected I knew. I never got enough proof on him to report him. Just pray to God he never touched my nieces. I moved to another country after the breakup and I'm still afraid that one day he'll find me. I never told this anyone. When I was in high school, my art teacher informed our class he was going on a trip to Florida for an art-related convention. A few weeks later, during summer break, he was on the news for the attempted rape of a 15-year-old girl in Florida that he had been communicating with online for years. Trust no one, this world is dark and full of wolves hiding under sheep's skin. An uncle beat a guy almost to death with his bare hands. He had walked in on a friend molesting a kid. He had to pay fine and do community service for a long time, but also didn't have to pay for beer at the local bar for a few months. He was so reserved and kind, so it threw me when I found out what he'd accomplished in his younger years. Acquaintance in the local punk scene, nice, well-respected guy, was secretly running a child porn ring and very likely trafficked some kids. All of us were stunned. Came after the FBI coming to raid the house prompted him to blow his brains out in panic. Obviously he had things to answer for that he didn't want to face. Coward. My biological mother is an absolutely despicable person. Found out she robbed a developmentally disabled person of everything they owned and had one of their shitty friends rent a U-Haul and empty the guy's place. Also killed her roommate's pets to get back at them for perceived slights. I'm not talking goldfish either. Someone in the friend group asked friend A where his mom was. He said that she died when he was younger. Friend A's brother, however, said that she abandoned them to get with a drug addict who ended up using her as collateral for debts and ended up dead. No clue who was telling the truth because they both got heated about it. Several people I was close to in work, one even included a friend, were pedophiles. The so-called friend was even organizing abuse. He got 15 years. I'm sure his best friend, who I knew but never met, was involved. I can tell you these sick fucks come in all guises. Some really meek and mild and others alpha males. My dad married my mother because she was stuck in the poverty. She never went to school and he felt sad for her. He thought he would help her if he married her, then their relationship was so toxic. I also discovered my mom never went to school, but I still don't know about her life before she married my father. A female friend of mine had a sex tape posted on P-Hub and at least one or two of my guy friends went on the site to watch it. Felt a bit disgusted, to be honest. The thought of watching it never even entered my mind since she was a friend of mine and she was also the GF of another one of my friend. My dad was in the mob in the 80s 90s. About 10 years ago my brother and were drinking and he blabbed. Supposedly dad was more a peripheral guy, their enforcer, and really liked using a baseball bat. A whole lot of things from my childhood make a lot more sense now that I have that information. I knew my friend's mom was hooking on the side, a high school buddy's mother. She knew I knew. One time out at their house she cornered me in the kitchen wanting to know why I had not told her son. I just said I would never tell. She then offered my free sex. I just said your secret is safe with me. Had a coworker who kept fucking up. Ended up googling him randomly right after he was let go, can't remember why, and found out he had been charged with kidnapping a girl when he was 18. I worked a cushy tech job, so it was really strange. Also odd that the background check didn't pick up on it. I have a best friend whose main family, sisters, mother, father, etc. treat me as a child of their own, yet I knew nothing of any other of his relatives. All I knew was that they lived off the grid. Apparently, his cousin, 17 meters, has a 4-year-old son and is married to a 25-year-old woman. My best friend and maid of honor purposely got pregnant so her then boyfriend would propose. It worked. She told me and asked me to be her maid of honor in the same conversation. I told her she was manipulative and couldn't be friends with her anymore. That's the last time we ever spoke.